I am Alara Winslow, and I was 32 years old on the day my wedding nearly became the moment my entire life cracked open in front of everyone I loved. From the outside, it was the kind of wedding people dream about and talk about for years afterward. The kind strangers describe as flawless. But perfection, I learned that day, can hide something ugly just beneath the surface. Before I continue, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps stories like this reach people who need them, and it truly means more than you know. The ceremony took place at Cedar Hollow Estate, a private vineyard tucked into the gentle slopes outside Sonoma Valley, California. The late afternoon sun rested low in the sky, spilling warm amber light over endless rows of grapevines. White chairs were arranged in neat rows along a stone aisle, each one decorated with soft linen bows and sprigs of lavender. Wooden barrels overflowed with flowers, cream roses, pale blush ranunculus, and fresh eucalyptus that scented the air. String musicians played softly, their notes floating on the breeze like something borrowed from a dream. Guests kept telling me it looked like a scene from a luxury magazine. I smiled, thanked them, and nodded politely, doing my best to look calm and radiant. Inside, though, my emotions were tightly controlled, held together by years of practice. I stood there in a gown that had taken months to perfect, fitted exactly to my body, elegant without being loud. The fabric brushed the ground when I walked, and every movement felt deliberate. In my hands was a bouquet that smelled faintly of roses and citrus leaves. Across from me stood my fiancé, Nathan Cole, looking at me like nothing else existed. His eyes were steady, warm, and full of certainty. To him, this was the beginning of forever. To most of the guests, I was simply the bride everyone had come to celebrate. They didn't see what sat quietly beneath the surface. My younger sister, Rhea Winslow, was my maid of honor. She moved through the crowd with effortless charm, laughing easily, hugging relatives, adjusting place cards, fixing crooked napkins. She played her role perfectly. People adored her. They always had. She had that kind of personality, bold, magnetic, impossible to ignore. If you didn't know us, you would have thought she was the most supportive sister in the world. But I knew Rhea too well. This wedding represented everything she believed should have belonged to her. The vineyard, the attention, the stability, the sense of having made it. Growing up, Rhea wanted life fast and loud. She chased excitement, approval, and instant gratification. I wanted security. I planned. I waited. I worked quietly without asking to be noticed. Standing there that day, I could feel her eyes on me even when she smiled. It was a familiar sensation, one I'd learned not to question out loud. As guests took their seats and the ceremony began, I forced myself to focus on the present. The vows, the soft rustle of leaves overhead, the gentle breeze that lifted my veil for a moment before letting it fall back into place. I told myself this was my day, that nothing else mattered. Still, a tightness settled in my chest. I caught Rhea watching me from the side, her expression soft but unreadable. Not joy, not pride, something flatter, calculating. I pushed the thought away and walked down the aisle. The ceremony passed beautifully. Applause followed our vows. Tears were wiped. Cheers rose when Nathan kissed me, and for a brief moment, everything felt light. I believed, even if just for a second, that the hardest part was behind me. The reception, though, was where everything shifted. When guests entered the reception area, I heard gasps and murmurs of awe. Long wooden tables stretched beneath glowing string lights. Crystal glasses caught the candlelight, scattering reflections across the tablecloths. Plates were arranged with precision, menus printed on thick cream paper, gold lettering catching the light. Servers moved smoothly between guests with trays of wine and champagne. The final cost of the wedding had come to just over $57,000. Nathan and I had paid every cent ourselves over 2 years, carefully budgeting, refusing debt, refusing help. Every detail had been chosen intentionally. This wasn't extravagance. It was effort made visible. Rhea stayed close to me. Too close. She hovered at my side, refilling my glass, checking if I needed anything, smiling widely for photos. She laughed loudly when people joined us and made sure everyone knew how proud she was of me. From the outside, it looked sweet, devoted. To me, it felt strange. I remember thinking how hard she was trying, how involved she suddenly was. I didn't yet understand why. I didn't know then that the beauty, the laughter, and the polished details were only the surface. Beneath it all, something old and bitter had been waiting for the right moment to surface. Growing up, Ria and I lived in the same house, but we were never treated the same. From the time we were young, I was labeled the responsible one. If something needed to be done right, it was my job. Homework finished early. Chores completed without reminders. Plans made carefully. My parents used words like dependable and mature when they talked about me. I thought those were compliments. Ria was different. She was exciting, unpredictable. She spoke without thinking, broke rules, and somehow turned every mistake into a funny story. When she missed deadlines or caused problems, it was brushed off with a laugh. "That's just Ria," my parents would say. As we got older, the pattern never changed. I went to college because it was expected. I worked part-time, paid my bills, and never asked for help. Ria drifted. She switched majors, dropped classes, chased passion without plans. Every time something fell apart, my parents rushed in, paying fees, smoothing things over, asking me to be patient. "You're stronger than her," my mother would say. "Be the bigger person." That phrase followed me into adulthood. It became an unspoken rule in our family. Ria could stumble, and I was expected to stay steady and silent. If I succeeded quietly, it was normal. If Ria did anything small right, it was celebrated. I told myself it didn't matter. I built my life anyway: career, savings, independence. I believed resentment would fade if I stayed focused. It didn't. Every holiday reminded me. Every family dinner. Ria interrupted stories. Ria took center stage. Her feelings always came first, and I was expected to understand. Everything changed when I met Nathan. He saw me in a way my family never had. He admired my discipline instead of dismissing it. He respected my boundaries. He celebrated my quiet wins. When we got engaged, I felt proud instead of cautious for the first time in my life. When I shared the news, Ria smiled and hugged me. She said all the right things. But something shifted. Her jokes grew sharper. Her compliments carried an edge. She asked questions that sounded like curiosity, but felt like comparisons. She joked about timing. About luck. About how some people just get everything. My parents told me not to read into it. "She's just adjusting," they said. "Don't take it personally." But it was personal. To Ria, my engagement wasn't just a milestone. It was proof of everything she believed she had been denied. Standing there at Cedar Hollow Estate, surrounded by beauty and celebration, I didn't yet realize how far she was willing to go to reclaim the spotlight. As the reception continued, Ria kept appearing beside me with a glass in her hand, always smiling, always attentive. Guests laughed and praised her for being such a wonderful sister. I nodded along, forcing myself to relax. The music played softly. The evening air cooled. Candle flames flickered as the sun finally dipped below the hills. And without knowing it, I took the first step toward the moment that would expose everything I had spent years trying not to see. The reception was supposed to be the easy part of the day. The vows were done, the photographs had been taken, and everyone had finally relaxed into celebration. Music drifted through Cedar Hollow Estate, soft and warm, blending with laughter and the clink of glasses. I told myself to breathe, to enjoy what Nathan and I had worked so hard to create. That was when Ria appeared at my side again. She was smiling brightly, holding 2 champagne flutes, her posture relaxed and confident, like she belonged exactly where she was. "You haven't even had a real drink yet," she said, pressing 1 glass into my hand. "It's your wedding. You need to loosen up and celebrate properly." Her tone was affectionate, almost teasing. People nearby laughed, nodding like it was a sweet sisterly moment. I hesitated, just for a heartbeat. I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was years of knowing her moods too well. But everyone was watching, and I didn't want to look dramatic or suspicious. So I smiled, lifted the glass, and took a sip. The champagne tasted strange. Not terrible, just slightly off. I told myself it was nothing. Expensive drinks often tasted different. I clinked glasses with Ria, thanked her, and turned to greet another guest. Within minutes, something felt wrong. The ground beneath my feet seemed to tilt. The music grew too loud, then too distant, like it was underwater. My arms felt heavy, disconnected from the rest of my body. I tried to laugh at something someone said, but the words tangled on my tongue. My heart began to race, then slow in a way that frightened me. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. At first, I thought maybe it was nerves or dehydration. Weddings were exhausting. But this felt different. My vision blurred at the edges, and the soft candlelight suddenly felt harsh and overwhelming. Sweat prickled along my neck, even though the evening air was cool. Someone asked quietly if I was okay. I nodded too fast, afraid that if I opened my mouth, I might fall apart right there. Conversations around me softened. I heard my name whispered. Panic rose sharp and sudden in my chest. Nathan reached me in seconds. "Elara," he said gently, his hand closing around my arm. The moment he felt how weak I was, his expression changed. "What's wrong?" I tried to answer, but my tongue felt thick and uncooperative. I hated the look on his face, confusion mixed with concern, on a day that was supposed to be joyful. Embarrassment washed over me in a way I can't fully explain. People had flown in. Money had been spent. Photos were being taken. And there I was barely able to stand. Someone offered me water. Another suggested fresh air. I nodded to everything because I didn't trust myself to decide anything. As Nathan guided me away from the center of the reception, my hands began to shake. I felt exposed, small, and suddenly very afraid. That was when I caught a glimpse of Rhea across the room. She was watching us. Not worried. Not surprised. Just watching. Her face was calm, almost curious, like she was observing an experiment she already understood. Something cold settled in my stomach. This wasn't nerves. This wasn't exhaustion. This wasn't champagne. Something had been done to me. The realization hit harder than the dizziness. On the happiest day of my life, I wasn't just unwell. I had been betrayed. They guided me into a small side room near the back of the venue, away from the lights and noise. The door closed behind us, muting the music into a distant hum. I sank onto a chair, my body heavy and uncooperative, my breathing shallow. Sitting there in my wedding dress, I felt humiliated. Vulnerable. Almost immediately, Lena Morales knelt in front of me. She was one of my closest friends, calm under pressure, and she worked in healthcare. The moment she looked into my eyes, her expression sharpened. She didn't offer empty reassurances. She took my wrist gently and checked my pulse. "This isn't alcohol," she said quietly. The words made my stomach twist. She asked me questions, what I'd had to drink, how much, how fast the symptoms started. As I answered, her jaw tightened. She explained softly that what I was experiencing matched signs of a spiked drink. Lightheadedness, weakness, confusion, abnormal heart rate. Hearing it spoken out loud made the room feel smaller. Nathan stood behind me, his hands clenched into fists. I could feel the anger radiating off him, but I was still stuck in shock. A part of me hoped there was another explanation. Anything else? Lena stepped out of the room and returned moments later, with Rhea. My sister walked in like she'd been mildly inconvenienced. Her posture was relaxed, her lips curved into a faint, casual smile. She didn't rush to my side. She didn't ask if I was okay. Lena asked her directly if she had given me the drink. Rhea didn't deny it. She tilted her head and shrugged. She needed to loosen up, she said lightly. It's her wedding. She's always so controlled. I thought it would help. The room went silent. I stared at her, trying to understand how she could sound so casual. My head was still spinning, but her words cut through everything. Lena told her firmly that what she described was dangerous. That people don't react this way to alcohol alone. Rhea smirked. She's fine, she said. She's always dramatic. Honestly, she deserved to be knocked down a notch. Everything is always perfect with her. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly. Not all at once. It was quiet, like a thread pulled too tight for too long. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't carelessness. It was intentional. I waited for guilt. For fear. For an apology. None came. Rhea crossed her arms, rolling her eyes like she was bored, like I was ruining the mood. Like my wedding, my body, my safety were inconveniences to her. Lena told her to leave the room. Rhea scoffed but turned toward the door, pausing just long enough to glance back at me. There was no regret in her eyes. Only resentment. When the door closed, the room felt colder. I finally understood something I hadn't wanted to admit for years. This wasn't sibling rivalry. This wasn't jealousy that would fade. My sister didn't just want attention. She wanted to take something from me, and she believed she could get away with it. Anger burned in my chest, sharp and heavy. Every part of me wanted to burst out of that room and expose her immediately. My hands curled into fists as I tried to steady my breathing. But I didn't. Instead, I stayed quiet. I let Lena bring me water. I listened to Nathan pace behind me, furious on my behalf. And as the fog in my head slowly thinned, clarity took its place. Rhea wasn't scared. She wasn't worried about consequences. She truly believed this would be brushed aside like everything else had been. That belief was her weakness. For years, my silence had taught her something dangerous, that she could cross any line and someone would clean up after her. Sitting there in my wedding dress, shaken but thinking clearly, I realized yelling wouldn't change that. Exposure would. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and made a decision. This wouldn't be handled quietly. This wouldn't end behind closed doors. What she had done deserved light, not whispers. People kept asking if we should end the reception early. A coordinator leaned in and whispered that guests were starting to notice my absence. Someone else suggested dimming the lights and quietly closing the bar. They spoke around me as if my weakness had temporarily removed my authority, as if this moment no longer belonged to me. I shook my head slowly. "We're continuing," I said. My voice surprised even me. It was steady, calm, certain. Nathan looked at me, searching my face, but he didn't argue. He knew that tone. Lena studied me for a moment longer, her eyes sharp and questioning, but she nodded. She understood something had shifted. I stood carefully, smoothing the fabric of my dress, grounding myself in the feel of it beneath my fingers. My body still felt fragile, but my mind was clear. Whatever Rhea had given me had not taken my dignity, and it had not taken my control. When I walked back into the reception, the mood changed instantly. Smiles broke out. A few people clapped softly. Someone called out that I looked beautiful. Relief washed over the crowd like a wave. I smiled, thanked them, and took my place beside Nathan as if nothing had happened. Rhea noticed immediately. Her eyes lit up when she saw the party hadn't stopped. Not relief, excitement. She seemed energized by the chaos she thought she had escaped. She drifted through the room louder than before, laughing, hugging guests, playing the devoted sister. She told anyone who would listen how emotional the day had been, how proud she was of me. It was like watching someone perform on a stage they believed belonged to them. I stayed close to Nathan, letting his presence anchor me. I smiled when spoken to, nodded at jokes I barely heard, danced briefly when the music swelled. I didn't rush. I didn't confront anyone. I watched. Rhea grew bolder as the night went on. She clinked her glass once. Then again, testing the room. Guests laughed and cheered, already anticipating her maid of honor toast. People loved speeches that mixed humor and sentiment, and Rhea loved being the center of attention. I could see it in her posture. The way she straightened when someone mentioned the toast. The way she adjusted her dress. This was the moment she'd been waiting for all night. She had no idea what was coming. I stood near the edge of the reception space, hands folded, breathing slow and controlled. No one noticed how still I was. They didn't need to. All eyes were on her now. Rhea finally took the microphone, smiling like it had been waiting for her all evening. The room quieted. Chairs shifted. Glasses were lifted. She laughed into the mic, thanked everyone for coming, and talked about how surreal it felt to see her big sister get married. Her voice carried easily. Confident. Smooth. Then the stories began. Not the sweet ones. She chose moments that made me sound rigid, overly serious, difficult. She joked about how I used to plan everything too much. How I was never spontaneous. How I always needed control. Each comment landed with polite laughter, just light enough to sound harmless. I smiled through it, even when my stomach tightened. She glanced toward Nathan and added how surprised she was that someone like him had broken through my walls. She joked about how patient he must be, how he deserved an award for putting up with me. The laughter grew louder. Nathan stiffened beside me. I placed my hand gently on his arm. Not yet. Rhea continued, growing bolder with every reaction. She painted herself as the fun one. The balance. The sister who softened me. The message underneath was sharp and familiar. I needed fixing. I listened to every word. I watched her lift her glass. Pause for applause. Scan the room to make sure all eyes were on her. This wasn't about honoring me. It never had been. It was about proving she still mattered most. When her confidence peaked, when she leaned into the microphone, preparing to pivot into fake sentiment, that's when I moved. Not rushed. Not shaking. Just one step forward. She saw me from the corner of her eye and hesitated, confused by my timing. That half second was enough. Rhea, I said calmly. The room quieted further. She laughed lightly, trying to keep control. Yeah, when you brought me that drink earlier, I continued evenly. You said I needed to loosen up. Do you remember that? Her smile faltered. Yeah, it was a joke. And you also said, I added, that I deserved to be knocked down a notch. Did you mean that too? A ripple of discomfort moved through the guests. Rhea laughed again, sharper this time. Wow, this really isn't the moment to be sensitive. I didn't respond to that, I said, turning slightly so my voice carried. The reason I'm asking is because the drink you handed me wasn't just champagne. The silence dropped heavy and complete. I became lightheaded within minutes, I continued. I couldn't stand. My vision blurred. My heart rate changed. That doesn't happen from one sip of alcohol. Rhea's posture stiffened. What are you talking about? I gestured calmly toward the side of the room. Lena Morales is here tonight. She works in healthcare. She examined me privately and recognized the signs immediately. Lena stepped forward. Before Rhea could respond, a woman near the bar spoke up. I didn't want to say anything earlier, she said hesitantly. But I heard her, Rhea, laughing about fixing the bride's nerves with a special drink. Rhea's face drained of color. That's not what I meant, she said quickly. You're twisting it. No one laughed. This is being blown out of proportion, she snapped. She's always dramatic. Still, no one came to her defense. Her composure cracked. It was one drink, she said, almost pleading. One moment where she wasn't in control. Why does that make me the villain? Because it wasn't an accident. Because it wasn't love. Because it wasn't harmless. She had said too much. The mask slid off completely, revealing bitterness, entitlement, and resentment she could no longer hide. 300 people watched the truth unfold in real time. Security approached quietly. Rhea looked around, waiting, hoping for someone to stop them. No one did. As they guided her toward the exit, the room stayed silent. Her heels clicked sharply against the floor until the doors closed behind her. I didn't follow. I didn't cry. I didn't say her name again. I stood there steady, my heart calm for the first time that evening. The air felt lighter, like something poisonous had finally been removed. Thank you for staying, I said to the guests. I know this wasn't expected. People nodded. Some wiped their eyes. The music started again, softly at first, then stronger. Nathan took my hand and kissed my forehead. We danced. I laughed genuinely this time. The vineyard lights glowed overhead, and the night air carried the scent of flowers and wine. For the first time, the wedding felt like mine. I didn't think about Rhea after that. Peace didn't come from forgiving her. It came from no longer protecting her. From letting the truth stand without apology. She wanted the spotlight. She lost it. And I gained something far more valuable: clarity, boundaries, and freedom. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive, and I'd truly love to hear your thoughts below.